They're ideological to the core, and they're very oddly applied. It's like, what percentage of women are bricklayers? I know I talked about bricklayers already tonight, but it's a good example. I went on the U.S., if you go on this statistical site that's operated by the U.S. government, you can look at occupations by gender. And it's an interesting thing to do. Here's an interesting thing. You know, the most common occupation for women back in the 1950s was secretary. You know what the most common occupation for women is now? It's secretary. They don't call them secretaries now. It's usually executive assistant or something like that. And that may indicate some elevation, genuine elevation in status. But fundamentally, the most common occupation hasn't changed in, what's that, 70 years. So that's pretty interesting. Bricklayers, 99.9% of bricklayers are men. Okay, so, and then it's the same for like heavy-duty construction equipment operators and people who are working with heavy machinery tend to be men. People who are building things, especially outside, tend to be men, overwhelmingly so. Far more even than engineers. So there's a fair number of female engineers. It's like, well, what are we going to do here? It's like, we're going to enforce gender equality of outcome across the board, sex equality of outcome across the board. Is that the theory? And how are we going to do that? Exactly. Or are we going to just do it hit and miss? It's like, oh, well, it's policemen this year. Well, how about bricklayers? It's like, why don't we pass a law, like tomorrow, that now 50% of bricklayers have to be women? It doesn't bloody well matter if the women want to be bricklayers. That's irrelevant. Who says anything about want? It's like, the only reason that women don't want to be bricklayers is because they've internalized their misogyny. Right? Well, that's the standard answer for that sort of gender inequality. And where is it going to stop? So I think, I've thought for a long time that the left can go too far. And I think that if you don't think that the left can go too far, then your head is so far stuck down in the sand that I need an ending for that metaphor. I was thinking about something far ruder and just made it polite. Anyways, I guess that's the ending to it. Obviously, the left can go too far. The 20th century is a testament to that. Venezuela is a testament to that. Okay, so when does the left go too far? Because the left isn't particularly interested in answering that question. And I would say the left goes too far when they insist upon equality of outcome legislation. Now, equality of opportunity is a different thing, because I think that if you have any sense, imagine that you're just greedy, and self-centered, and that you want the most for you. So we won't be too optimistic about your motivations. And I don't think that most people are like that, by the way. I think that people are, by and large, pretty good at reciprocal interactions, and they do like to have nice things for themselves, but they're often hard on themselves. But they care about the people they love, and they care about their families, and they're pretty good at reciprocal interaction with other people too. So I don't think we are just innately selfish to the core. It doesn't work. But let's assume you are for a moment. Well, and then let's assume that there's a bunch of things you don't know how to do, and there's some people out there who have some talent that might be able to do them, and if they did them, then you'd get to benefit. Like you don't know how to make an iPhone. Well, some of you might, but not the whole thing. But, some people know how to make an iPhone, and you get to have one. And so stopping someone who could make an iPhone from making one for some arbitrary reason because of their sex or their ethnicity or their race just seems completely counterproductive. And it's pretty obvious if you look around the world and you look at countries that are developing economically. Here's one good indicator. The countries that have, there's a very powerful relationship between the rights granted to women and the economic viability of a given country. It's very tightly associated. So that's quite cool, because it seems to indicate, well, maybe openness to the participation of women in traditional societies is also an indicator of openness to the new, to the novel. And so that's a good predictor of economic success. Or maybe it's that women have 50% of the talent, and we could use the damn talent, so how about we invite them into play too? That seems perfectly reasonable. And the same goes for, as I said, for ethnicity and for race. And so I think you have to be a damn fool not to open up the hierarchies to those who are competent, right? To the maximal possible degree, and that it's an error not to do that. But to insist that the outcome is the same, it's like, it's vile as far as I'm concerned, for a variety of reasons. The first reason is there's no indication that any attempt to do that in the 20th century ended up in any other manner than catastrophe.